Welcome back to Mac Stories Unwind. Today's episode is brought to you by Collide. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing all right. We're at the end of another week, although we happen to be recording this earlier in the week. But for everybody else, you know what? It's almost time for the weekend, so we have picks. But you said you had something that you wanted to talk to me about first.
So I was thinking about the iPad Pro and the things I want to try with the iPad Pro. We're recording this before I'm actually getting mine, but this episode is going out after, in theory, I received mine. So obviously, one of the first things I want to do is turn it into a MacPad. But what I wanted to talk to you about briefly is this idea that now Zoom lets you record a local recording of a call, and it lets you download a local copy of your audio. I was actually talking to this with Jason Snell, and Jason told me that he was able to do a podcast on the iPad by downloading the local copy of his microphone that Zoom keeps in the cloud, and that sort of makes it possible to do a podcast on the iPad, which is nice. But of course, that still doesn't mean that you can actually record a local backup of the call, which is what we do with Audio Hijack on the Mac.
Right.
So that's an interesting idea. I wanted to ask you, have you ever done that? Like, have you ever downloaded the copy that Zoom keeps for you?
Nope, never done it. Never done it at all. But I did actually, it's funny that you mentioned this because I did hear Jason talking about this. And I immediately made myself a note to talk to you about it because I thought, this feels like an opportunity. I feel like Jason's onto something here. And maybe it's something that you and I should try out. It might make our summer a little easier if you're like at the beach or I'm on vacation somewhere, whatever it happens to be. The iPad does provide some nice portability that doesn't tie you to a Mac.
Mm-hmm. Then I also remembered something, and I was looking through old messages that I sent you in January 2013.
Okay, that's a long time ago.
2023.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't think I knew you. Year. I don't think you and I had met yet in 2013.
No, 2023, last year, January of last year.
Okay.
If you recall, I was obviously frustrated with the lack of being able to, not being able to record podcasts on the iPad.
Right.
And I did manage to set up a system in which what I wanted was working, which is being on a call while also recording my local audio on the iPad. Of course, asterisk, that is still without the backup of the call, because that is not possible, because there's no audio hijack on the iPad. But if you recall, I had set up the Mix Pre 3, I think it's called, and the Scarlett Solo USB audio interface. I had set up both of those together, and I was able to hear the call on my iPad and record my microphone to an SD card thanks to the Mix Pre 3. This is a method that you actually told me about, and I was able to get it to work.
Yep. I still have that Mix Pre 3. It's in storage.
I also still do. I have a bag in storage with the Mix Pre 3 and the Scarlett Solo. I'm kind of wondering if maybe I should give this a try again.
I think we should. I think we should do it for science, and we should be very careful. Be very careful so we don't end up having to re-record an episode. But yeah, I'm up for it if you are. I know exactly where mine is. Mine's out in my garage.
All right. So the thing we'll miss, we gotta be mindful, because the thing we'll miss is the backup of the entire Zoom call. We'll just have each of us will just have our own microphone.
But doesn't Zoom have the feature that allows you to record the Zoom call?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, that you guys do that. I know you guys do that with Connected, and you always have the now recording message, and we do it. We've had that on some of our other calls. So I don't know why we couldn't do that.
Okay. So if you're up for it, this time I will not keep secrets from you. We'll do this together. We'll try to actually record podcasts in a different way, on the iPad. I think we should try it.
Yeah, I'm up for it. I used to. So just for context too, when I was using the Mix Pre 3, one of the things that I did in Audio Hijack is I always kept the SD card in the Mix Pre 3, and I
Yeah.
always had an additional backup going to the SD card. And I would,
Yes.
because those files were recorded in MP3 format, they were relatively small, and with the 64 gig SD card, I was able to basically record months and months of audio.
I I actually checked our old messages this
Yep.
morning. We were able to get it to work with saving WAV files to the
Wave
SD
files.
card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I would do is every year I would get myself a new SD card and I would wipe the card about every month of the backups. And I just had it there in the background doing that because that was just an easy way to have a backup that wasn't tied to my actual Mac. And we could definitely I don't know. I'm familiar with it. I've done it. I just need to go back into the Mix Pre 3, probably update its firmware and refamiliarize myself with how it works.
Yeah, this is one of those scenarios in which I understand the benefit of note taking. If only I had written notes for myself last year on how to set everything up. I only have the 2 pictures I sent you on
I
iMessage last year as reference.
I have an
Um,
article. I do have an article on Mac Stories where I kind of did some of this.
okay,
There is
okay,
an
all
old
right.
there is an old Mac Stories article where I set up the Mix Pre 3 to do some recording from an iPad, but that was in the Skype days, so we didn't have the benefit of the backup from Zoom or the recording from Zoom. So this is basically would be bringing that setup, I think, forward to the Zoom setup and giving that a try.
All right.
This episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by Collide. What do you call an endpoint security product that works perfectly but makes users miserable? It's a failure. The old approach to endpoint security is to lock down employee devices and roll out changes through forced restarts, but it just doesn't work. Your IT team is miserable because they've got a mountain of support tickets, employees start using personal devices just to get their work done, and executives opt out at the very first moment that it makes them late for a meeting. You can't have a successful security implementation unless you work with your end users, and that's where Collide comes in. Their user-first device trust solution notifies users as soon as it detects an issue with their device, and it teaches them how to solve it without needing help from IT. That way, untrusted devices are blocked from authenticating, but users don't have to stay blocked. Collide is designed for companies with Okta, and it works on macOS, Windows, Linux, and mobile devices. If you have Okta and you're looking for a device trust solution that respects your team, visit collide.com/MacStoriesUnwind to watch a demo and see how it works. That's KOLIDE.com/MacStoriesUnwind. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show.
All right, let's talk about the picks.
All right. I'm going to go first today. And
Okay.
I want to tell you about Peglin, which is a very interesting Peggle roguelike. All right. And that is a very strange thing to say, but it's an early access game on Steam, but it's also on iOS and Android. And what happened here, from what I understand from reading some Touch Arcade articles and interviews with the developers, is that they went into early access on Steam and then somebody ripped off their game on iOS. And so they said, we don't like this. What we're going to do is we're going to put out our own iOS game right now. And so Peglin is on iOS in kind of its early access form, but the game is far enough along that it really is a full experience. I'm sure that they will add more content to the game, maybe some more types of items to it. But I have really been loving this game. It's free to play for a certain amount of levels, and then it's $8.99 to unlock the full game. And what you do is it works like Peggle in the sense that you are launching these orbs and bouncing them off of pegs. And what you get as you do that, instead of a score, you're inflicting damage on enemies and bosses that are attacking your little guy, who looks a little bit like Yoda. This is like a little green guy who is, fighting against bats and all kinds of different ghouls and things like that. And everything that you do in the game is based on launching these orbs into these systems of pegs. And the pegs have all different types of qualities that will do different things, like maybe multiply your orbs, or give you additional points if you hit a particular kind of peg. And the orbs themselves have their own types of dynamics in terms of what they can do. And I just find this game incredibly fun to play. It's perfect for mobile because you really can just play for a little while, and it works with controllers. So I've been putting it into the Kishi Ultra and just playing a little bit in the evening now and then. Really fun game. It, like I said, you can play it on iOS, but you don't have to. You can also use Steam, or if you want to play it on Android, you can do that too. And you can get far enough, I think, too, with the free version that you really get a sense pretty quickly whether this is your kind of game or not, because it takes you through, if I remember right, it takes you through kind of like the first map, because what you do is as you defeat the enemies, you advance to another spot on a map that where you go on the map is also driven by launching orbs at the pegs and determining where you're going to go next. And I think it's the free part is that first map, and then once you get beyond the first map, you have to pay if you want to keep going. But there's a fair amount of content there, and you can really get a good sense for it, I think.
How do you like the Kishi Ultra? It's been a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I love it. I really love it. And it's even just little things, Federico, like the fact that it's kind of a big chunky boy where you don't have to like yank it really far in order to get your phone into it. It's almost as wide as the iPhone 15 Pro Max, so that you just have to pull it out a little bit to get it in. And I know that probably doesn't sound like a big thing, but it actually makes it very easy to kind of get going and started more than anything else. Now, it is the thing that is not great about it is it is really pretty big. You don't, like, there was a weekend where I was going somewhere and I thought, I'm going to take this and try it out because I just gotten it. And then I looked at it next to the little Game Sir X2S that I have, and I took a Game Sir because the Game Sir is compact and small and lightweight, and the Kishi is a lot heavier and just bigger. But it really is a very high quality game controller. So, and I kind of like the RGB lights. I don't know, maybe I'm becoming an
because
RGB.
you're a gamer.
I'm a gamer now. I know. I've got my external eGPU, and it's got the lights too, and I'm getting into the RGB, TG. I don't know.
Oh God, why?
No, but it's a good controller.
Next step for you, get a gamer chair.
I do
a
not.
Bunch of RGB. Yeah, you really want to get a gamer chair and start streaming Valorant or something.
I need to get a good chunky headset with a microphone that wraps around and all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. My pick for this week is a game that I've been playing in early access on Steam. As you can imagine, it's Hades 2. I completely understand if you want to wait for the final release. I believe that the current state of things with Hades 2 is that obviously the folks at Supergiant Games are seeking feedback from the community.
Right.
The ending of the game is still not there, but the game is pretty much finished and it's in great shape. So, for context, I never finished Hades 1, and I'm actually thinking of either go play Hades 2 for a little while and then go back and finish Hades 1, or if I don't want to be bothered, just watch a recap video on YouTube of what happens at the end of Hades 1. Yep. It is sort of hinted when you begin Hades 2 what happened before, but yeah, I kind of need to understand properly what happened at the end of the first game.
I had that impression too, because I started playing this the other week, just over the weekend, and I was a little confused as to what was going on at first.
Yeah. Anyway, I should say I've been playing this game on my Legion Go. at the 30-watt TDP, the game runs beautifully at 144 with
It's amazing.
144 hertz and FPS. Like, it looks amazing. It looks, I think, it's obviously very consistent with the first one in terms of voice acting and music and style, but everything has been taken up a notch. Like, everything looks even better. There's more sense of depth with like some elements that are in the foreground and then the rest of the scene unfolding with this isometric perspective in the background. The music is even better. The voice acting is possibly even better than before. The gods that sort of send you like the perks down from Olympus, they look even hotter than before,
They
which is
do.
which everything looks better. And here's the thing about Hades 2. You're playing as Melinoe, who I believe is the sister of the protagonist from the first game.
Okay.
I believe that's sort of what I've been able to piece together myself. I'm not sure though. Don't take it for granted, because once again, I didn't finish the first one. What I was not expecting is that this game starts, and even after a couple of hours, the combat system and the game's flow is very different from the first one. This game is more focused, instead of just melee combat, it's more focused on magic and
Hmm.
casting spells and infusing your weapons with different casting abilities. Marinoe can effectively perform three different things. There's the standard attack, there's the special attack, which is your Y button at the top, or your triangle, whenever you're going to play this on PlayStation.
Hmm.
And there's your cast, like your casting spell, which is what you get by pressing B or long pressing. So the idea is that, especially when this game starts with the default sort of staff that you have as your main weapon at the beginning of the game, this is a much more. It's like the rhythm of the game is a lot slower than the first one. It's the kind of fighting system that pushes you to get close to enemies and then recharge, take your time, cast a spell again or cast a special ability again, and then go back. Sort of, it's got that push and pull instead of just going all out with melee combat as in the first one. I really like this flow. And what I think the game does well is that the more you play, of course, you're going to die and you start again, and you sort of unlock new elements of the fighting system as you die and start the cycle all over again.
Right.
You unlock the ability to collect resources, so like to mine resources like silver, for example, and to exchange these different resources for different permanent upgrades to Malinoe. So that, obviously, the lack of visible progress is something that always annoyed me in roguelikes. Like, I know that the whole idea of roguelikes is that you are the progress. You, the player, learning how to play the game is your
Right.
progress. But I still like to see that there's some permanent upgrades,
I do
to
too.
my character. And this game does even more than the first one, because you can unlock different weapons, you can unlock different magic spells, you can unlock different arcana cards. These arcana cards will be like your permanent boosts, essentially, that you can equip your characters, and you can unlock this with a currency named ashes. Then there's the bones that you can collect to unlock different perks, and then there's the silver that you can use for weapons. Like, I think it's not overcomplicated to the extent of like a game like an Assassin's Creed or like an Horizon, or even arguably Tears of the Kingdom, that has many collectibles for you to find.
Right.
But I think it breaks up the flow of the game really nicely, and the focus on magic, it really works for me, because like, I think I would have been bored if this was a replica of the first game, and instead, with a focus on a different style of fighting, I think it's really working for me so far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I have not played it a lot. I think I played about an hour so far, and I played through enough of it to realize that it is very polished. Because that was my first question for you. Was I was inclined to wait, but
Hmm.
but it's as given that it's as polished as it is, I think that you can, if you don't want to wait, it'll be a while before you get to the end anyway, and things may change a little bit here and there, but it is a very polished game and a lot of fun to play right now. I will
Yeah.
get through a certain amount of it, but I know I will probably put it aside when Paper Mario comes out.
Oh yeah.
All right, Federico, that's it for this week. I want to thank Collide for sponsoring this episode. You can find the two of us over at macstories.net. We're on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net and johnvorhees.macstories.net to find us there. And we're on Threads and Instagram. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.